you all to my channel. If this is your first time of coming to my channel, thanks a lot. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe. So in today's video, I'm going to be making a simple video on how to cut and sew this trendy cow bubu, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So if you are looking now to make ready to wear dresses, now this video is for you. Learn how to cut and sew this trendy bubu, and you can just add it to your ready to wear collection. So don't forget to join us on Facebook, TD Designs, on Instagram, TG Designs, and also visit our website. We have amazing illustration on our website. I'm going to go ahead and put down the details in the description box. Feel free to drop your questions in the course of this video, and if you have any topic you want us to make a video on, kindly drop it also in the comment section. So now let's move straight into the video. Guys, so I'm going to be making use of this chiffon fabric. Now this chiffon fabric is about 60 inches long and 3 yards of fabric. So I'm making use of 3 yards of fabric and 60 inches long. Now note that this chiffon is the thick form of chiffon fabric. So the first thing we are going to do now is to go ahead and fold our fabric into 4 this way, 4 equal parts. So you can see our fabric is folded into 4. So once we are done with that, the next thing we are going to do now is to go ahead and mark out our basic lines in which we are going to build our trending bubu. First thing we are going to do now is to go ahead and fold our fabric into 4. So once you are done folding your fabric into 4, of course this upper part serves as our shoulder line. Now the next thing you are going to do now is to go ahead and mark 2 inches for your shoulder slope. Okay, so we'll go ahead and mark 2 inches for our shoulder slope. So we have this point to be 2 inches for our shoulder slope. Now once you are done with that, we'll also go ahead and mark from our shoulder to our bust line. Of course our shoulder to bust line is 9.5. So we have shoulder to bust line 9.5 inches. Note that this is the line we are making use of. Okay, so this line is part of the African print. It's kind of have line at the upper part and also line at the lower part. So this is line for our bust, this line over here, right? So once you are done with that, now go ahead and mark 2 inches below your bust measurements. Now why are we marking 2 inches below our bust measurements? It's because of our sleeve, and so that you can have this ease around your sleeve area. So you come down with 2 inches from your bust line, come down with 2 inches from your bust line to give you your sleeve line. So this 2 inches now is our bust line to give us our sleeve line. Now another thing you also take note of is from our bust to our waist is 9 inches. Bust to waist is 9 inches. Of course this is just like your basic standard measurements where we have bust to waist 9 inches, waist to hip we also have 9 inches. So waist to hip we have 9 inches. Now for this video, because this style is not a fitted style, we will not be needing our waist measurements, but we need our hip. So we will need this hip line. Waist to hip we have 9 inches. So we have this hip line here to give us 9 inches. Now once you are done with that, come down with 5 inches from your hip line. Come down with 5 inches for your hip line. Now the essence of you coming down with 5 inches from your hip line is because it gives you this kind of curve effect, and you are going to see that in the course of this video. So from our hip line now, we'll come down with 5 inches just to enable us get our curve. So this is what we have. So the first line we have is our shoulder line. We also have our bust line. From your bust line, come down with 2 inches for your sleeve opening. Now from your bust line, you mark your waist measurement, which is 8 to 9 inches. From your waist to your hip, we have 9 inches, and we are going to make use of this our hip line. Now from your hip line, you also mark 5 inches to enable you get your curve, and of course you have your gown length. Note that yours could be a long gown, you could make yours 3/4. It depends on what you want to achieve. So for me, I'm going to make use of the whole length, which is about 60 inches, and that serves as a long gown for me, right? So this is the line. I will just go ahead and extend this line. Once we are done with that, now the next thing we are going to do now is this is our shoulder slope. We just connect it this way. So we'll go ahead and mark our neckline. So for the wideness of our neckline, I'll be making use of 3 inches. While for the deepness of the front neckline, I'll be making use of 6.5. Deepness of the front neckline, I'll be making use of 6.5. While for the back, I'll be making use of 1.5. So for the front neckline, I'm going to make use of a V neckline. So for this style, it's basically V neckline, okay? So you make sure you use a V neckline, but you can either make yours deeper or a little bit higher. It depends on what you want to achieve. Now, once you are done with that, we have this line to be 2 inches for Once you are done with that, we have this line to be 2 inches for our sleeve opening. So I'm going to go ahead and notch it. Just notch it a little to indicate your sleeve opening. So I've gone ahead to notch that. Just open it up this way a little. Now the next thing we are going to do now is we are going to come to our hip line. Now note that for your hip measurements, it depends on how free you want it to be, and of course it's a Bubu dress, so it's supposed to be free, right? So make sure you increase your measurements so that you can have this freeness around your hip area. So you increase your hip measurements, like your basic hip measurements, so that you can have this freeness around the hip area, because it's actually a free gown, right? So for that, I'm going to be making use of 20 inches for my hip measurement. I'm going to be making use of 20 inches for my hip measurement. So you can either increase yours or you can reduce it, but just make sure that what you have on your hip line is more than your hip measurement, and the more you add to the fabric, like the more measurements you add to your hip line, the more free your gown is going to be. So I have 20 inches here, which is fine. Now the next thing we are going to do now is we are going to come down to our 5 inches we marked from our hip line. Like I said earlier, I said this 5 inches enables us to give it a shape. So for my hip line, I have 20 inches. I'm going to deduct about 3 inches from my hip line on this part so that we can have this shape, right? So I'm going to mark 17 inches. Note that you can deduct 4, 5, 6 from your initial hip line. It depends on the kind of shape, like how shapy you want the gown to be. So let me just go ahead and mark 15 inches, which means that I deducted about 5 inches from my hip measurements. So I'll go ahead and mark it here, right? So we are going to mark this 15 inches on our gown length. So our 15 inches now, come to your gown length and mark your 15 inches on your gown length. So this is what it basically looks like. So now I'll go ahead with my pattern master to connect the lines, and pattern masters are available at our store. So I'll just do that. Connect it gently, because what we have is a chiffon fabric, so make sure you pin it down so that it doesn't shake while you are taking your measurements. So I'll go ahead and connect it. So we'll connect it this way. and then you connect it. So you go ahead and connect it to this point where you have your sleeve opening. So this is what it basically looks like. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Then I'll show you guys what next we have to do. So for the front block, after cutting it out, you can see our V neckline. Now another thing we have to take note. So another thing you need to take note of in the front block is that you can decide that yours should have a slit in front, and you can also decide that you don't want it to have a slit, right? So it depends on whichever one you want. Now if you don't want a slit in front, this is how you are going to leave the lower part of your dress, right? But just in case you want yours to have a slit, let me just go ahead and explain how to get your slit. Now for this lower part of your dress where you have your gown length, go ahead and mark 3 inches. So we have 3 inches. Now for the length, it totally depends on how high you want your slit to be. So let's say you want your slit to be 17 inches or 18 inches. It depends on how high you want it to be, right? So you go ahead and mark where you want it to be, and then you connect it together this way. Now once you connect it, you go ahead and cut this out. Once you cut it out, you are going to have a slit, because here it's going to be opened. That is if you want to spice it up a little and just add a slit to it. But if you don't want it to have a slit, go ahead and leave it this way. And I think I'm going to leave mine this way. I don't really want slits, right? So it's optional. So the next thing we are going to do now is this. We go ahead and open up our fabric. So this is the back print, and this is where we have the front, right? To do the sewing of this dress is actually very easy. So the next thing you are going to do now is you are going to go ahead and hem your neckline. Note that you can use a facing or bias to hem your neckline. You can use facing or bias to hem your neckline. Now another thing you have to do now is that we went ahead to cut out another long piece. Note that this long piece depends on your gown length, right? That is the length of your piece, right? So we go ahead and place it this way on it. Go ahead and place it this way on it. Now this is our neckline. I left about 2 inches, so just come down with about 2 inches so that it doesn't choke you like it choke. So that it doesn't choke your neckline, right? So we have this piece now, which is about 4 inches. Now go ahead and place it this way on it. Once you place it on it, you will stitch this edge. You will stitch this edge because this is where we are going to pass our rope to push the dress. So you will stitch this part, you will go ahead and stitch the middle, and then you will stitch this other end. You stitch this other end. So we have 3 lines now all the way down. We have 3 lines all the way down on this extra piece we placed here, on this extra piece. So once you've done that now, you will go ahead and stitch this part. Make sure you use the matching thread so that it doesn't show at the front block. So you go ahead and stitch this part all the way down. You also stitch this middle part, and then you stitch this edge, right? Now you can determine where you want it to get up to. Now you can see that for those of you that want slits, this is the marking of our slits, and our ruche got to somewhere around where we have our slits. So if you want it to come up a little or just go down, it depends on what you want. And if you don't want slits, you can also decide to ruch this up to your gown length, but make sure you leave allowance around the lower part because you are also going to hem the lower part. So once you've decided where you want it to get up to, if you're adding a slit or not, so you go ahead and stitch this part, stitch the middle part, and then you stitch this ending part. So you are going to do that for the front block, right? Block. Now for the back block don't really have so much going on. So the only thing you have to do at the back block now is just to hem the neckline for the back block. Once you are done with that, go ahead and place both pieces together this way. You can see the shape, you can see what we have, you can see the shape at this part. Now go ahead and place your back block on your front block together after hemming the neckline and fixing your ruche. Now on this your shoulder, now go ahead and stitch your shoulder. Once you stitch your shoulder, you get to this point, you stop. Now you can also see where we notched for our sleeve. You can see where we notched for our sleeve opening. So you leave this part open because this is where you are going to fix in your hand, where you are putting it on, right? So from this part we notched now, from this part where we notched, you go ahead and stitch it all the way down. You go ahead and stitch this all the way down to your gown length. So once you are done with that, I'll show you guys what it looks like, and our gown is ready. So let me just come over again. So the first thing we said we are going to do was to hem the neckline, and after hemming your neckline, you also go ahead and stitch your ruche for the front block. Once you are done with that, place your back block on your front block this way. Once you place it on your front block, you go ahead and stitch the shoulder line. After stitching the shoulder, you are going to discover where we notched for our sleeve. You leave that opened. Now from this part where we notched for our sleeve, you go ahead and stitch it all the way down. After stitching it all the way down, I'm going to show you guys what our dress looks like. So guys, this is what it looks like. You can see the drawstring effect at this part, and it's so beautiful. So you can also see our sleeve. You can see how it just curls, and you can see the cowl effect. So this is what it looks like. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.